This is part 1 of a video tutorial on flying the Oz display in instrument conditions to runway 36 at KIXD Airport in Microsoft Flight Simulator 10. For this same tutorial in X-Plane 9, click on the yellow box on the screen. Here's the GPS approach plate to runway 36 to KIXD Airport, which we are about to perform in the simulator. We want to have a good idea of what our flight's going to look like before we jump into the actual simulation environment. I pulled the approach plate from the AirNav website, but the file for the approach will be available and contained within the Oz zip file, which you will download from our website at www.fly-esky.com. Zooming in, we can see the layout of the waypoints on our flight plan. We're going to start the airplane slightly to the southeast of the initial approach fix, which is called NAPV, on the right side of the chart. Once we pass NAPV, we'll fly to Anquam at a course of 266 degrees and an altitude of 3,100 feet. Once at Anquam, we're going to turn to the right to a heading of 356 degrees and start a 3-degree descent down to 2,700 feet. Once we finish off our descent, we should arrive at the next waypoint, which is called Jikla. After passing Jikla, we will eventually get down to runway 36. For the tutorial, I'm going to use somewhat of a hybrid approach where I'll fly the ILS down to the runway after passing the waypoint Jikla. The reason for this is simply to show you how the localizer and glide slope needles work on the Oz display. Scrolling down to the bottom of the approach plate, we can see here a profile view of our descent. We'll intercept the NAPV waypoint at 3,100 feet and a heading of 356 degrees. Once at Anquam, we'll start a 3-degree descent to the runway and we'll utilize the Oz nose ring for guidance until we arrive at our next waypoint Jikla in an altitude of around 2,700 feet. This is the glide slope intercept altitude as indicated by the arrow next to the underlined number. We'll follow the ILS down to our decision altitude from that point forward, and we'll see that at the bottom of the profile over here, for an LPV approach, that is a GPS approach with vertical guidance, our decision altitude will be 1,316 feet for half a mile visibility. In an LNAV approach, we'll have a decision altitude of 1,440 feet for a half a mile visibility. Because we're doing somewhat of a hybrid using the ILS system, I'm going to use the ILS decision height, which is going to be 1,266 feet for a half a mile of visibility. Finally, looking at the airport on the inset to the left, we'll see that we're going to come in on a heading of 356 degrees to runway 36, and it gives us an idea of what the runway layout should look like in terms of its orientation as we come into our assigned runway. So now let's load up the simulator and do the approach. What I've done now is turn on Microsoft Flight Simulator and gone to the Free Flight tab on the initial home page. The first thing we're going to do is select a Cessna 172 aircraft because the Oz demo is using the Cessna aircraft for its power tables. Now keep in mind it does not matter which version of the Cessna 172 you use, so long as it's the default model that's built into Microsoft Flight Simulator. So you could use the Cessna with steam gauges or the Cessna with the G1000 in it. Next we're going to change the airport to KIXD, and we're not going to worry about the runway because we're going to move the aircraft once we get started to the southeast of the initial approach fix, which is going to be NAPV. So I'll click on current location and change. For airport ID, we'll put in KIXD and then we'll hit OK. Now we're going to define the local weather conditions. So we'll go to current weather and change. Then we'll go down to the customize button. And then we'll click on advanced weather. And so you can see right now I've got it set to cumulus clouds, which are scattered 3/8, moderate turbulence. I've got precipitation as rain, which is set to very high. For the winds, Keep in mind our runway heading is 356, so I've given us a direct crosswind at 90 degrees with a speed of 7 knots, and we're going to have gusts at 5. Temperature is standard, and visibility has been reduced to half mile. And what this will do is make sure we're in the clouds the entire flight until we get to around our decision altitude. So I'll hit OK to accept, hit OK again, and one more time. And then just make sure you have the current time and day set to around noon so you have daylight. But you could fly at nighttime if you wanted to as well. The next thing we're going to do is turn on the FSX link. This is what sends data between Flight Simulator and Oz. So we just click on the fsxlink.exe, which you should have gotten from your download on our website. This window will pop up, and all you have to do is minimize it. Next, we'll hit the ozpfd.exe, and it's important you turn on these exes in the right order. And then we'll get 2 windows. We can just minimize this window. And here's the Oz screen, and I'll just move it out to the corner of my screen over here. And once that's done, all we have to do is go back to Flight Simulator and hit the Fly Now button, and our scenario should load. There it is. And now we need to move the aircraft so that we are at the southeast of the waypoint NAPV. So what I'm going to do is go onto the toolbar and go to World, and then Map. I'll zoom in using the magnifying glass. And I'll just click on the little aircraft here, and I'm going to drag it. And I'm just moving it until we get to the NAPV waypoint. Here's NAPV. And so I'll move us to the southeast of NAPV. And let's start at an altitude of 3,500 feet. So we'll be slightly above 3,100. We'll be at a heading of 270 degrees. And a cruise speed of 110 knots. And so I'll just hit OK. And once that's done loading, we'll just make sure that the simulator is paused, because we have some other variables we're going to set up first on the Oz display. Alright, and the simulation is paused. So the next thing we want to do is tune into the ILS frequency. So if we hit Shift and then hold the 2 button, we'll get the radio stack. And I'll just tune in the first nav radio to 110.90, and that's the frequency for the ILS at KIXD. And then I'll hit the switch button to flip-flop frequencies. And if I look at the display on Oz, now you'll see nav 1 is at 110.90, and this magenta dashed line appeared for both the localizer and glide slope, so we know that's working correctly. And if I hit Shift 2 again, that will go away. Next, I'm going to hit the Views button. Then I'm going to go to View Mode, Cockpit, and Cockpit. And what I'll do is I'll just keep hitting the W key to cycle through the different instrument panel modes until I've got only forward-looking vision on the screen. So now I can only see out the front of the airplane. All the panels are gone. And I'll just pull up the Oz display. And at this point, we've got everything pretty much ready to go except for initializing the target values on Oz. So what I'll do is briefly pause and unpause the simulator. And you can see now that updated the values on the Oz display. And what I'm going to do is adjust my target values for the first phase of flight. What I'll do is use the plus and minus keys to adjust the altitude target star layer. And as I hit the plus key, you can see the persistent values increasing here on the screen, and we'll set it to 3,100 feet. And as we go up, we can see that star layer just came in. And so that's 3,100 feet right there. Next, I'm going to use the period and the comma key to adjust the target airspeed, which is the diamond. You can see the diamond moving over here, and I'll set that to 110 knots. And last but not least, I'm going to set the heading using the left and right brackets to my first heading, which is going to be 266 degrees. And so now that's set, and we want to make sure that that's green, and green symbolizes that it's the heading in front of our aircraft. So now everything's ready to go. All we have to do is unpause the simulator, and we'll carry out the flight.